fifth attempt at making another installment of it. And today it's just me. We'll maybe have some guest stars on in the future, but for today it is just me. So, 2020. 2020. It's a leap year starting on Wednesday. I remember that Wednesday very well. A new decade, yeah. So, start of January, we welcome the new decade in. And, oh God, I remember going to a Roaring Twenties themed party at the start of the decade. That's how optimistic we were. Anyway, yeah. Little did we know. Well, actually, we did know about COVID at the time, because that, hence the name COVID-19. The actual, from what I recall, the actual emergence of that virus came out in it must have been like October, November 2020, maybe December 2019, rather. Sorry. Anyway, we can actually, yeah, like, let's have a look at this carousel of images. I'm trying to remember, let's see if I can remember what it is. It's George Floyd protest, uh, COVID-19 response, Trump not getting elected. I don't know why they have Trump there, given he didn't win the election. Kyrgyzstan, that's, uh, the Indian farmer protests, very big at the time. I think that's the Beirut explosion, isn't it? Um, that is not sure what that is. I think that's related to the Minneapolis um, riots of that earlier, well, sorry, early that summer. COVID-19 response. Oh God, yeah. And I think was it Kobe that died. I'm really sorry. I'm not actually that knowledgeable about basketball. Okay, here we go. Beirut. Yep, yep. Thai protests. Okay, Indian farmers already. Yep, yep. Oh, Qasem Soleimani. Okay. Kyrgyzstan. Kobe. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, Trump announcing that worldwide emergency where he said Antifa is the greatest threat to American democracy. Yeah. Anyway, yes, the 2020 saw the decade began with the COVID-19 pandemic, which was social and economic disruption. Yes. So this is the interesting thing, and it's very, I think we will look at the sort of 2010s in the future, like we sort of look at the 60s, I think, in terms of the sheer level and scale and the rate of social change for the better that occurred in that decade was really immense. And looking back on it now, um, we really achieved some remarkable things in tens, I would say. Uh, and 2020, I think summer 2020 was kind of the absolute zenith of this. I think many people would say there was a peak of what you would call peak wokeness. Um, and sure that's one way of looking at it, but I think we will see that as a sort of high point of a certain social liberalism that we reached, and a certain um, how put it, a certain victory in in the unanimity of critical thought, critical theory that emerged on the campus in the 60s, where we hit its mainstream peak in about 2020. I think from there we've seen a sort of slow retreat from that greatly accelerated after the 2024 election, but eventually, when we inevitably do, um, come out of this sort of increasingly conservative phase in the West, I think, yeah, we'll see 2020 as sort of 1968 moment of our lifetimes, really. So that makes it really interesting, actually, to do a sort of retrospective on that year, 5 years later. Given that the previous year in review podcasts, well, one of them was done on the fly in at a party after Corbyn lost 2019, and the other year in review. This is the first formal thing we've done. I think we did have one somewhere, but we've lost the tape, so we have to do it again. And the reason I'm suddenly doing this is because YouTube demands that in order to remonetize our channel, we have to uh, create what they call original content, which is just such a bore, really. Um, however they define it, they define it very loosely. But anyway, as you may have heard on my other stream, that is why we're suddenly picking up the microphones again. Really, I don't actually really want to do this, but you know what? If it works, it works. Anyway, I've said that late enough in the video that hopefully no one will actually pick it up, and or YouTube rather, but YouTube people won't pick it up. I don't think they'll be watching this far. But anyway, this is very interesting over here. Um, I'm on the Russia-Ukraine border, 2025, Luhansk. So this is uh, Russian-occupied Ukraine currently. And what we see here is a Soviet road. Right? It goes here, through here, abandoned section there, into Ukraine, through this town. Old Soviet road goes through the town, abandoned section again, out the other side past the border. Then after, cuts the Soviet Union, they built this bypass. And despite both Russia and Ukraine having Street View, neither of those, I can't be right. Well, why do they not? Oh, of course they don't have Street View. It's in the Donetsk. Very ignorant question from me there. What's this town called? Blahov. Like a little bypass. So yeah, so 2020, we had no idea about the what was happening, what happened to this part of the world then. Is this not? No, wrong part of this one. Is it this one? No. No. Radio Free Europe, that paragon of reliable information. Oh, to be fair, expect a lot of tangents on these streams because I cannot be trusted to stay on topic on anything, and I don't really care either. This is sad. Yeah, consequences of the collapse of the Soviet Union on humans, like this sort of thing. That, a river where someone growing up in this town used to be able to swim on the Ukrainian side, and now that river's an international border. Although I'm slightly okay, right. This part of the world, I think, is now part of the Russia occupied uh, territories. I'm pretty sure. Let me just have a quick look. I'm fairly certain that is, that is well within the occupied territories right now. Right, well, where is it? Here. Oh, yes, this bit. The weird bypass. I wonder if I mentioned the bypass here. But new Russian invasion is also a distant notion. Yeah. I guess if you're, well, historically, if you're from there, you have to go out through these narrow roads here. Thing is, I think now that's probably, I wonder what that looks like now, actually. Very interesting. So it reminds me of those villages in Transnistria, which are actually still part of Moldova, but completely isolated. Completely isolated. What places I kind of want to visit? Actually, a few interesting Deutsche Welle, DW articles in these towns. Maidan, yes. a new better road bypass. Yeah. Dead school. Oops, sorry. Dead school bus. Yes, this is typical Radio Free Europe. I thought they got defunded. You know, anyway, and that's not what this stream is about. I mean, it's you know, it's a sort of like, China gives us low cost renewable energy to reduce energy bills in Europe, but what cost? At what cost do we have cheaper energy? These solar panels might mean that we no longer have to rely on Russian gas and the whims of whoever controls the tap there. But no, we're not allowed those solar panels. It's dangerous for us. Anyway, um, yes. So 2020, the murder of George Floyd leading to the protests, which I remember very well. Yeah, climate change was way like was on fire that year because it was before the real shift to renewables happened in Asia, in China, and yeah, the situation looked pretty dire back then actually. Um, Still is, but I would say it's a lot better than it was this year actually. Yes, the 2020 election, very consequential, but as we know, merely delaying what happened 4 years later. And the attack on the US Capitol, that's for the next episode. 20, the worst year ever. Was it the worst year ever? Yes. Yes, it was. Yeah, I would say for most people it probably was actually. It was also the zenith of a lot of social progress that is increasingly being rolled back. But on pure material well-being as a result of the pandemic, it undoubtedly was the worst year of my lifetime. Yes, December 2019, start of COVID. Croatia. Yes, massive wildfires in Australia. That's how the year started. Qasem Soleimani was killed on the 3rd of January, and we all thought we were going to go to war with Iran at the time. Um, Libya. That's interesting. I don't remember this. Oh, I do remember this. Yes, it was right at the peak of the just after Soleimani was bombed, and it turns out that we yeah, they bombed the Ukrainian Airlines flight thinking it was. I remember seeing to recall that they bombed the Ukrainian Airlines flight thinking it was a military aircraft. Or it was ambiguous. Actually, I shouldn't really make assumptions on the stream. But anyway, DPP won again in that election. Yeah, first impeachment trial. This was over. Was this over? What was this over? This was over. It wasn't over Russiagate, I think. It was over abuse of power. Oh god, yeah, it was over the Trump Ukraine scandal. Funny that this kind of set the tone for what we're seeing today, uh, in terms of the yeah, because this event gave Trump a massive hatred of Zelensky and Ukraine. I think he somehow thought Zelensky was responsible for this affair, which results in this 5 years later. Never would have thought, but this, well, um, the latest deal, so-called deal, which Ukraine will never take, um, being offered to them. Anyway, Yeah, COVID. Well, yeah, impeachments in the US are such a farce. I think when you have a Senate deciding on whether they're guilty or not is effectively deciding whether they're guilty or not. That's just ridiculous and kind of rubbish, actually. Proving parliamentary elections is before or after. Yeah, it's this one that's really interesting. I think the one where a Marxist-Leninist won, Pedro Castillo. God, wow, yeah, very really poor. It used to say Marxism Lenin, isn't it? Yeah, they do some Lenin as inspiration. But anyway, yes, where were we? Okay, Kobe Bryant dies in a helicopter crash. I remember that. NAFTA was replaced. Yep. Okay, Jan 31st. God, I forgot about this. Yeah, Brexit happened. Bloody hell. Yeah. Then the Irish elections 2020, where Sinn Féin performed the best they'd ever performed, and actually at one point it looked like we were going to get a Sinn Féin government, like a proper left-wing government in Europe at one point, but came close, didn't happen. February 8th. That was February 8th. God. Okay. Far extremist. Yes. At this point, the world really did look like it was about to plunge into total um, chaos, and it did. It did. What the hell was this? God, I keep forgetting that this was signed under Trump. I always associate the fall of Kabul with Biden, but this, yeah, that was under Trump, wasn't it? Completely forgot about this. Yahoo time capsule, what's in there? It's so funny. Can I go on it? No longer available for review. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? What are they thinking? Very Wayback Machine. Pretty weird though. What they don't. We spent all this time making a time capsule and it just didn't get. We got reopened, but only for a brief period. God, anyway, all right. Well, that's kind of interesting. I can't. Yeah, go away with it. That's it. Right. Okay. We have a time capsule that can't be opened. Right. Okay. Fair. Yes, Italy and COVID. That was the first. Yeah, and then all of this is just COVID, 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 COVID. What was that? Very interesting that this group is participating in a denazification. Prior to the Trump administration actually did that, really. It's not really. I don't think they do that anymore. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, yeah, um, it's COVID, COVID, COVID. Yeah, it's all COVID. All this is COVID, 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 COVID. Yes, the Bay of Piglets coup. Operation Gideon, wasn't this? Yeah. Absolute joke. I haven't heard much about Venezuela lately. Not in the last few weeks. I think we might be. Oh, okay. That's not good. Just, US just invading countries. Max Planck. Who's this guy again? Max Planck. Yeah, that guy. Planck. Where did I hear of this? Planck units. Yeah. Planck constant, that's it. Anyway. Absolute insanity. Yes. So that happened May 25th here. And when was the night that Minneapolis police station burned down? It was, I feel like it was. Yes. When the police station burned down, that was, a truly remarkable moment when that happened. But that was this day. Oh, yeah, China, Hong Kong. Yeah, so that was this day, and that was truly remarkable. The police, yeah, protesters effectively stormed and successfully took a police station in downtown Minneapolis. And I was watching this unfold on online at the time, and people really thought that we could have been witnessing the start of a major sort of revolution in the US, really. That's what people actually thought at that time. And as ridiculous as it sounds now, when this and when that happened, um, yeah, when the police station was taken, it really did look like, yeah, when this happened on May 28th, it really did look. I'm surprised that's not listed on this page because this was a seriously significant moment in 2020 where protesters successfully drove the police out of Minneapolis 3rd Precinct Police Station and then burned it down. Yeah, officers retreated from the building, loading squad vehicles and smashed the parking lot. This was incredible when it happened. Well, this was, yeah, it was absolutely remarkable to see that happen in a major American city. Actually, it was really, yeah, I don't know if incredible is the right word here. The most appropriate word is more sort of um, jaw dropping. I think is what I mean. Yeah, jaw dropping to see that happen. Um, And interestingly, is this? Yeah, interestingly, um, I feel like you don't really hear about this that much. Maybe it's deliberate. Maybe it's not really. Yeah, they don't really want to emphasize too much that protesters actually did burn down, or take a police station and then burn it down. I think it's the closest to genuine insurrection we've had in the United States in the last in the modern era, really, when this happened. But yeah, the internet was crazy when that happened. There was a live stream on YouTube. Everyone was watching it. Everyone saw the police station burn down, and then everyone's thoughts was, "What next?" Anyway, very interesting to look back on that now. Yes, Hong Kong after 22 years, the British government finally decided that we would allow Hong Kongers who uh, lived in British territory for over a century. Finally, they were allowed half UK citizenship in 2020. Something that doesn't really get mentioned a lot in general discourse about Hong Kong. Yes, major environmental disaster. This was, and yeah, oil leak near Norilsk. Yep, this was the first step rather towards the gradual disintegration of relations between the two Koreas, and North Korea is pivoting away from a reunification policy. Another Serbian election. Yeah, that's just Vucic won again. Honestly, don't really understand who votes for that guy, but yeah. Vladimir president. Vladimir Putin extended his term. Very interesting that this wasn't reported as much as anywhere near as much as what you hear about when Ibrahim Traore's army do similar things, actually, because this was done under a pro-France government, I believe. 180 bodies. If that happened today, we would be paraded with this news about Burkina Faso doing this. And instead, this is a sort of, yeah, I don't remember any coverage about that whatsoever. Yes, huge moment in world history. Hagia Sophia was reverted to a mosque in the face of Ataturk's proclamations, sorry, decree that made it into a museum. Very, in my opinion, very big step backwards for global secularism, in my opinion. But yeah, election. I think uh, I think this. I would say when people ask when was peak wokeism, I would say it was this. Like this was crazy, really dumb, actually. Because basically there was this movement to post black squares on your Instagram feed like this on early June 2020 as part of the movement to protest against the killing of George Floyd. Now, part of me genuinely thinks this was a psyop. I can't see. It was either a psyop or it was something started by 4chan to try and make the uh, the protesters look as incompetent as possible because there's no way organically someone thought of this, actually, genuinely. And it was so dumb because this basically pushed out genuine coverage of police brutality against the protesters. And if someone ever asks what is wokeism, I very much struggle to define it, I will admit. But whatever it is, it's this, really. It's gotta be this Black Square movement has to be somewhere up there if you ask how to define that particular word. And I think that was probably the peak, the zenith of wokeism. I think since then, since this date, I would safely say that before that, we're increasingly seeing reflection and progress on the front of a West that was reckoning against its own past. I think after this, we started seeing doubling down to the point that we have today. But yeah, that this day was pretty significant, I think, on a sort of global, sorry, on a chronological, teleological scale. Anyway, Beirut explosion, um, absolute tragedy. Uh, the videos speak for themselves on that. Really, it was one of the biggest non-nuclear explosions that's happened in the world, and I'd say very much overshadowed by events that were happening at the same time and after it. But yeah, awful, awful, awful disaster. Yeah, this was before Pelosi. It's Taiwan that was yeah afterwards. Oh yes, Belarus. 2020. Yeah, this was the first Belarus protest movement. I always thought this was a year after. Very interesting. Well, my friend and I very nearly went to Belarus around this time, actually, right before that happened, which is kind of because this was right when Donald Bancroft was becoming famous, making videos about that country. Yes, that was that year. Um, Bloody hell, we thought that. How much is somewhere in the world? God, this shows how crazy things have got, right? We're looking at £500 billion net worth now. In 2020, it was considered absolutely shocking news that Bezos hit 200 billion. And, if someone looks at these figures and says that there isn't something insanely screwed up about the way the American economy is distributed, I honestly, I don't know what to tell them, really. Well, actually, I hear it all the time, and yeah, it's honestly, I think the real telling thing is that we would have thought this 10 years ago. This was unimaginable, right? Today, that is considered normal. And do we realistically look around our own economy and see 200, $300 billion worth of growth in the US? Do we really see that? No, of course not. I mean, do you really think that Tesla is truly worth more than every other car company in the world combined? Right? Really? Like, no. Is there real value there? Anyway, topic for another time. Resignation of Shinzo Abe, later overshadowed by the assassination. Is Sudan a secular state? Huh. I didn't realize Sudan was a secular state. Um, Pope, Pope. Didn't realize Pope Benedict resigned. Anyway, um, yeah. Oh, I can't. Kosovo moved recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital. I had no idea of that. This is, I would never would have thought that of all things that Kosovo and Serbia would agree on, it was moving their Israeli embassies to Jerusalem. Because I don't think, Kosovo actually, I think it's pretty pro-Israel due to its history and historical allegiance to NATO. But within Serbia, that's pretty. That this move under Vucic is really controversial. Actually, I'm surprised that they did that in tandem with Kosovo. That is the issue that they decided to make joint statements with Kosovo over. Yeah, that was big news. That one, this one here. Um, that's that was good. Nagorno-Karabakh, yeah, that was very significant. Yes. Yeah. This was the first, sorry, the second Nagorno-Karabakh war. I think was there a third one? Well, this isn't even called the third, it's called, yeah. But this was, yeah, the first breakdown of the peace, well, I say peace, the first breakdown of the ceasefire lines that existed there for since the fall of the Soviet Union. Yeah, that's very interesting. This region, right? Um, it's actually my victory in New Zealand history. What's interesting about this actually is that uh, yeah, what is interesting about this is that this is entirely due to the COVID, the success of the COVID response. Like I would argue, and what's interesting about that is that in retrospect, it's very much a result of New Zealand's geography, like the fact that they had the uh, the ability to, it's not a different colour, yeah, to simply, you know, isolate itself from the rest of the world. And that won Labour this election. I thought this was. Yeah. Anyway, let's keep on going. Uh, yeah, Moldova election, pro-Europeans won again. Uh, Joe Biden was elected. That was a huge consequential election, really. And Trump obviously won the next one. Yes, this was a very successful election for the Democrats. I forgot about that. But not enough to overcome the Senate filibuster, which is an important thing. Sputnik vaccine, yep. I remember that. Ring. The United States recognized Morocco's sovereignty over Western Sahara. I had no idea. Crazy. Mm. And yeah, I mean that's the end of 2020 was dominated by COVID vaccines and the question of uh, what the way out was. Oh God, there's a long, long, long death list. Bloody hell. Yeah, I can't go through all these. These are so many. I was wondering who would be on these like listing the birth years for the year this recent, but I guess it's all just royals and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, that is a wrap. 2020, very consequential year, and that is Treemovies wrap up of that year.